Hello everybody, I'm Bob Thomas and this is The Bottom Line. Today I want to talk to you about the tragedy in Benghazi and all its aftermath. As an American, you need to know what's going on behind our backs. I read in the news recently that according to documents obtained by ABC News, right after the attacks and murder of our ambassador and 3 staff members in Libya, a top State Department official pressed the CIA and the White House to delete any mention of terrorism in public statements about the Benghazi terror attacks to prevent critics from blaming lax security at the consulate. Then another State Department spokeswoman said in a statement that the changes were made to prevent members of Congress from, quote, providing more guidance to the public than the administration, end quote. The official spokeswoman for the State Department is Victoria Nuland. Remember that name. She said she was expressing the concerns of the leadership of the State Department, Hillary Clinton, that when she emailed that a CIA memo on Benghazi should remove references to the attacks that linked to Al-Qaeda and CIA warnings about terrorist threats in Benghazi the months preceding the attack. According to ABC News, Nuland objected to an email to White House and intelligence officials that the CIA description, quote, could be abused by members of Congress to beat up on the State Department for not paying attention to warnings, end quote. Well, if you aren't aware, our UN Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, she appeared on talk shows 5 days after the September 11th attack last year, and she was given a list of talking points by the administration that was going to explain what really happened, which in reality was a fairy tale. Rice insisted the attack was just from a protest over an anti-Islam video produced in America that then turned violent and that terrorism was not involved. Well, since then, the White House has even acknowledged that the assault was a pre-planned terror attack and no protests happened. My God, this was the anniversary of September 11th, folks. But let's continue. In these emails that were taken out of the administration, it said the White House tells the CIA that the State Department's concerns need to be addressed. So we go back to this Victoria Nuland. She raised 2 primary concerns about the talking points. Quote, first, that these points went further in assigning responsibilities than preliminary assessments suggested, and there was concern about preserving the integrity of the investigation. Second, that the points were inconsistent with the public language the administration had used up to that point, meaning members of Congress would be providing more guidance to the public than the Obama administration, end quote. In other words, she didn't want Congress to know the truth. The Vice President of Foreign and Defense Policy at the American Institute said that the, quote, the Obama administration's version of what happened in Benghazi was deliberately misleading, that saying that it was not Al-Qaeda was a lie, and the notion that this was an attempt to protect anybody but Barack Obama is laughable, end quote. He further said that they could have nipped this in the bud in just 2 days and there would have been no investigation whatsoever. Let's go back to these talking points. These are the ones given to UN Ambassador Rice. There were 12 different versions of these talking points. The initial unclassified memo that the CIA gave out for distribution to lawmakers and government officials, it said, quote, extremists linked to Al-Qaeda were known to be operating in Benghazi. The agency has produced numerous pieces of threats of extremists linked to Al-Qaeda in Benghazi and eastern Libya, end quote. It admitted it. And it described 5 attacks on foreign interests just since April of that year. Then it said, we cannot rule out that these individuals have previously surveyed the U.S. facilities, the embassy, also contributing to the efficiency of the attacks, end quote. Well, guess what? That entire paragraph and description, completely deleted. Then there were more edits. And then Nuland, remember her? She objected again, saying that, quote, these changes don't resolve all of my issues or those of the State Department's leadership, end quote. Of course, the leadership is Hillary Clinton at that time. So Ben Rhodes, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor in the White House, wrote the next morning that the State Department's concerns should be addressed. He said, quote, we must make sure that the talking points reflect all the agency's equities, including those of the State Department, and we don't want to undermine the FBI investigation, end quote. Wait a minute. Equities? The State Department's equity? What equity do they have? The only equity they had was avoiding an embarrassment that they did not provide security for an ambassador that had requested it several times, and the result was he was murdered along with 3 staff members. So here's the bottom line. After all these emails and phone calls going back and forth, these people got together, and the final talking points that they gave to the ambassador to the UN, Rice, had no reference to al-Qaeda and the known security threats in Benghazi before September 11th, and that's what she took to the public as the truth. So now this terrible tragedy in Benghazi, the only thing that's happening is these cowards in Washington are hiding behind their desk and still trying to cover their own butts. When in reality, what should happen? You take every person's name on all those emails who's trying to cover themselves, and every single one of them should be fired. I'm Bob Thomas. You can see more episodes of The Bottom Line at thebottomline.tv.